Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. Here with me, as always, is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband and baby daddy.
Whoa, I didn't know you were going to drop the news so fast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We are expecting.
Woo! I'm so excited.
Yeah, and it's still very early, and we really just kind of decided after, we're 4.5 weeks, so, definitely, like, some people don't share about when they're expecting until after the first trimester, because obviously there's, highest chance of loss in the first trimester. And so it's something that we kind of thought through and thought about. And I share pretty much everything about my health, about my life on social media. And it's really hard to not share about something that big. And I just ultimately decided that, of course, remaining very aware that something could always happen, and we'll take everything in stride. But the reality is, if something were to happen, I would want to share about that with you guys too. I would want to share every high and every low of, lots of highs right now. If there were lows, I'd want to be able to share about the lows as well. So I want to be able to bring everybody in on every step of the journey as we go, as we navigate, so I can share about, what I'm doing health-wise. I can share, the struggles. I can share the beautiful moments, maybe inspiration for those who are wanting to be pregnant or plan for that in their future. And for those who have already been there or currently there or are very experienced in this area.
Send us any tips and or anything that you think could help us.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to, obviously, I'm not just this is my first time being pregnant. I am by no means an expert here. What's amazing is I have an incredible team of moms, except for one is also pregnant, and she's due in January. So she's going to be a first-time mom as well. So I have moms in my corner who are ranging from, kids of across different ages. So I've always been joking for, a while that I have this just kind of like coalition of moms here who know exactly how to navigate pregnancy, how to navigate motherhood. And this will be all new for me. So I can really just share in that process, but also ask you guys for tips and input and
advice.
Yeah, advice.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know you were just gonna drop the bombshell like that. I thought we were gonna egg it out or play it out for a little bit. But I guess where do you want to start? Do we want to walk through the planning, what all it took to kind of get us here?
Yeah,
where do you think we want to start?
We can kind of go to the beginning a little bit, add some context. So, we'd been quiet about the fact that we had been planning to start a family. Our goal was to start a family in 2025, but we had been quiet about that because, of course, once you share that that is a goal, then you start to get a lot of questions from friends, family of how's that going? And, you never know what the process is going to be like. So you don't necessarily know if you want everybody involved in
Can
that
I share
part.
something on that? I always thought that was the most awkward thing, because people are like, yeah, how's that going? I'm like, it's good. I'm like, we're having sex. I'm like, I don't know. How do you respond to that? But anyways, that was, to me, I'm like, all right, let's just not say anything until it happens, because I feel like that's the most awkward part of it.
Yeah. I feel like you definitely don't want to let parents in.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because especially, your mom is first time grandmother. She's extremely excited.
Oh my God.
But if we had told her that we were trying, she would have been just wanting daily updates.
I'm like,
and
okay,
that would be weird.
Chill out. Yeah.
So anyway, we, knew last year, 2024, I had, I talked about with close friends and things that I felt like 2024, my health was, that was a year that I was like, okay, 2023, I really got my health in a great spot. I wanted to prove that I could keep my health in a great spot in 2024 before going through a significant change in my body and in my hormones, obviously, with a pregnancy. So that was why I had told myself, if I can keep my health in a great spot in 2024, kind of prove to myself that I am truly at that place of this is sustainable, I can maintain this, I feel good, then I'll feel confident of going into a fertility journey in 2025. And there was definitely nerves of thinking about that, knowing that my history of hormone and gut issues for a long time, I didn't ovulate at all. For a long time, I had really bad cycles, and I was nervous. I was worried that it could also be a tough fertility journey as well. So I wanted to do everything I could to prepare and set my body up for success in the process. So going into 2025, we talked about it and we thought, you know what, why don't we plan for this summer? We start trying. We're like, that gives us, about 6 months, 5 months, and that should be in a good place for us to, we always say like, we'll get the business in a good spot where we'll feel confident.
We'll get life ready.
You know, the reality is you never get life ready. You never feel like the business is in a perfect spot for that by any means, but we just felt like we wanted to, as much as we could, get our ducks in a row. Well, come late spring, I was feeling like, I feel like my stress isn't managed very well right now. I know anybody who's been listening to the podcast, you would remember I talked about it different times of like, I was having some flare-ups and some certain symptoms. I wasn't feeling the best, and it kind of felt a little bit
what were like the biggest symptoms you were having at that time?
My cycle was a little bit irregular, and my PMS was spiking up. I was having some bouts of fatigue and some gut issues and things that were popping up. So I just kind of felt like just doesn't feel right to start yet. Like I don't feel quite ready. I don't feel a lot of peace in the idea.
And this was in June, right?
Yeah, well, like May, because we originally talked about June would probably be when we would start trying. Come May, I was like, I don't feel like I'm quite ready yet. I think you were kind of just like either way, because I think you were both like, I am ready, but also like, I'm not in a hurry. Like if we want to wait, we can. So I feel like I was just kind of, deciding on the pace a little bit there. And so come June, and we've talked about that, then I ended up doing MRT testing, did some good work on my health there. And a big part of this journey that I also want to just kind of mention as well, I also just really dove into my faith during this time. And I think that was a big part of me feeling ready for motherhood. Without going too deep into that conversation on this episode, I historically always was very nervous about the idea of motherhood. I think there was parts of me that was like, I don't know if I even have the, like some women are just felt like they're born to be mothers. It's their life instinct. Goal. Yeah, the motherly instinct. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I had that. I really was nervous about that. And it's not that, like, don't get me wrong, I've always loved kids, but at the same time, I've always felt super awkward with kids, especially babies. I am great with kids like 5 and up, where it's like, if I can have conversations with them and have a great time, like
if I can have a friend, I'm
a very fun person of like that age group up. When it's like the babies and toddlers, I didn't know what to do because I was, kind of the baby in my family, didn't have any opportunities growing up of really being around kids that were younger than me. And so I just never, I think maybe learns that skill, or maybe it just didn't come to me naturally. Yeah. I don't know, but I didn't really realize it, I think, until in my 20s when Lindsay, my sister, had her first baby. And it was like, I, was super excited for her. And she had my little niece, Piper. This was back in 2019. And so we were living in Atlanta at the time. And I remember I came home, that like week or two after Piper was born. And, she goes to hand me the baby, Piper. And I'm like, just realizing like, I have no idea how to hold this thing. I felt so uncomfortable.
This thing? Yeah.
And my mom, my sister, and, just like other family members, like lovingly teased me a little bit. And it kind of became a little bit of the running joke of, Vanessa like doesn't know how to, like, doesn't feel comfortable with babies, isn't comfortable with kids. And it was
I remember that.
It was a loving, teasing joke, just the way siblings and family members are. But it did speak a little bit to the fear I was already had. And so I think there was that part of me that was just like, I am internalizing this idea that I don't know how to handle babies. And so, yeah, there was definitely some nervousness and fears, but anyway, that all led me kind of back to this year. I think maybe there was still some of that lingering, even though I knew that we wanted to have a family. There was also the nerves of like, am I ready for that? Will I be able to be a mom? All those things. And took a lot of just surrender to God of like, oh my gosh, pregnancy hormones, getting emotional. I think it just was like asking God for guidance and just a lot of prayers of, if this is in your will for me, like help me feel ready for that and help guide me in that process. And also just a lot of surrender and acceptance of even if it is a goal and a want for me, I also can acknowledge and recognize that it's ultimately up to him if he wants that for me as well. So there was also a lot of prayers of just acceptance and asking of, if it's in your will for me, prepare my body and my mind and myself for pregnancy and for motherhood. But also if it's not in your will for me, you'll, help me accept that as well and help me through that process. And I do think that did a lot to help prepare me. And it felt like by the end of the summer, I kind of knew, okay, the fall is actually when I feel like it will be a great time to start trying. And so we had kind of circled the date of October, we would start trying. And it only took one shot.
Yeah, it was. And by the way, thank you for sharing that, babe. I know this episode's a little bit more on the personal side because I do think that we don't get to share a lot of our personalities and what we have going on. And obviously, as there's probably a lot of listeners, you know, one, a lot of people are struggling to get pregnant. And then two, there's busy moms that are also navigating, you know, childcare and dealing with just life and work and all these stuff. And it really does take a lot out of people. But I can tell how hard it is to share some of these things. So I do just want to say, like, I'm proud of you for doing that. But it was a bit of a different experience for me. I think I'm the oldest of three. And so I grew up babysitting my brother and sister. And so
Brian's a good bit younger than you as well.
Yeah, he's 8 years younger than I am. So, you know, that was kind of my experience. And I feel like, I don't know, I've always just enjoyed kids and I think they're funny and I don't know, I like to mess with them and I'm just, yeah.
What you guys should know about Omar is that kids love Omar. Like any of our friends who have young kids can attest to this. I can't even count how many of our friends' kids have told you that you are their best friend.
Yeah. Well, I tricked them and I'm like, do you want me to do this? I'm like, am I your best friend? They're like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like,
they
okay,
will like ask for you, like of anybody and everybody, they are obsessed with you.
Yeah. Well, I think it also comes down to like, you know, family dynamics. Like I grew up without a dad. And to me, I'm like, that's just always been a big driver to like be a good dad. And so I'm so excited for this opportunity too. But yeah, like to kind of what you were saying, I'm like, I've been ready for a long time, but I'm like, it'll happen when it happens. Obviously, I'm not carrying the child. So I'm like, whenever you're ready, totally cool with me. But I know you mentioned the MRT stuff that you did. And obviously, you've done so many protocols and just, you know, testing and nutrition. And it's been quite a journey. But yeah, I think at the beginning of the year, you know, and you had sent me so many reels where you're like, all right, like, you know, 50%
the
of
subtle
this baby.
Sending him of reels of like, here's what your husband should do if you're going to start trying and you want to set your pregnancy up for success. I was like, okay. I
was like, well, I guess these are just signs. So anyways, I was like, all right, I got to get my health in order. And it's actually been really cool. This year alone, like I've really probably I'm 33 now. So I'm like, this is probably like the fittest I've ever been. And I feel incredible. Like my confidence is through the roof. Obviously lab work has been, you know, awesome. So I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I feel like I'm pretty good. And also too, again, if we're going to conceive, I'm like, I want to give the baby like the best chance of being healthy and having good genetics and, you know, just coming out in a good place. So anyways, that was kind of my journey. And I've kind of really worked on doing that. I do think for guys, it is much easier of a journey to do something like that.
You could also argue it's easier to also not have to put as much worry and concern into it too. And don't get me wrong, we have you know, male friends. We have couple friends where you know
the male has
some
been
fertility issues because of you know, more of like the male side than anything, and like that's a very common issue too. But we also can often see that you know, it's for women, it's more of there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle, I think.
Totally.
Whereas for men, I think it can be easy to not worry so much about your health and just be like, oh, I'm just going to do my job here and I'm good. And like not really do as much prep work. Really proud of you for the prep work that you've done.
Thanks.
You've done a lot of work into your health this year and you have been looking and feeling the best you've ever looked. So
yeah. And to your point, again, we're very early in the process and I know there's so many things that could happen and we're just, staying very close to our faith and praying that everything turns out well. And if it does, awesome. If it doesn't, we'll take it one step at a time. But I do think that, I mean, again, we didn't try very much and it just happened. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool.
We were always careful in the other direction of very like, we want to actually make sure that we don't accidentally get pregnant because we wanted to really be prepared because our life is just has always been very, very busy and very hectic. And we wanted to be as prepared as possible as we could.
Well, I also think too, like for you, just to kind of give people an inside scoop, but like you've always been so good, at least in these last 6 months of like tracking like your ovulation cycles, your menstrual cycles and everything. And so like, you're so in tune with your body to where you're like, okay, I should be experiencing XY. I should be ovulating right now and I'm not. And so that's a concern of mine. So let's get that fixed. Right. And so there's so much data between like your Oura ring and like your MRT test. The Mira ovulation thingy, your MRT test, like that's just been so cool to see where I'm like, it's literally like a science project. Like you come into our kitchen, I'm like, one of our cupboards is just full of like supplements and different things that Vanessa does, her teas. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it feels like a pharmacy. But to the point where like we did all of these things. And honestly, I had no fear to where I was like, I know it's going to happen because I'm like, we've both put so much time and effort into our bodies. I'm like, it's just a matter of time. But again, we're very early in the process, so who knows what will happen from here. But I do feel like the process was relatively easy for us, and easy is a generic word. But yeah, I guess, do you want to share a little bit about like kind of what these last couple of weeks have been?
Yeah, well, I'll just really quick also speak to what you were saying there. So to give a little bit of insight into kind of the fertility journey, because like I mentioned, we, very blessed in that it's been an easy conception process so far. It was our first month of deciding we were going to start trying to conceive, and we already got pregnant. So that's very, very grateful for that. But that was with a lot of work and preparation leading up to the process.
Yeah, I think the last year, I would say, right? You've really been intentional about it.
Of course, we can think about all the years of work I've been doing on my hormone and gut health. But this year, the goal has been fertility, and I'm really excited to be able to now share about these things, because honestly, I've felt like for a while now on social media, I feel like I've struggled to share about my health journey because I didn't want to give insight into the fact that the goal has been fertility. Because like I mentioned, didn't want people necessarily to know that we were going to start trying and be asking questions about that yet. But what I've been doing is, as I mentioned, I've been using the Oura ring. So I've been using an Oura ring for several years now, but I use that for cycle tracking for basal body temperature. Sorry, babe, it's kind of annoying. So I've been using the Oura ring for cycle tracking and basal body temperature. So that's where I use that primarily for tracking my cycle. But then I added in, come May, I actually added in the Mira, which is a pretty cool, it's an at-home essentially hormone testing using urine. So you daily will use a test strip and it checks your progesterone, estrogen, and LH. Is it perfect? No, but it's a great way to be mapping out data over the course of the month. When you're getting a singular data
point. What does LH stand for again?
Luteinizing hormone. Okay. So that's what you're primarily looking at of did I ovulate or not? You're looking for the surge of luteinizing hormone. So that's been really helpful of pairing both the Oura ring, looking at my temperatures to track, okay, according to my temperatures, am I seeing that crossover to see, okay, yes, I've crossed over what's called the cover line. So your temperatures in the first half of your cycle are staying below the cover line. In the second half of the cycle, they're above the cover line. And it's that crossover between being low and high is when you know that you have crossed over ovulation. Now taking that data along with what my hormones according to the Mira are saying, because it's a little like egg that takes like 20 minutes to test your urine strip and then pulls those hormones, syncs it with an app, and then it actually gives you a graph. So every single day I can see where my hormones are at. And so being able to watch that and kind of make some adjustments the last few months, and the work that I've been doing with food and supplements and stress management, lifestyle changes, it's been fun to kind of watch how my hormones and ovulation have just improved over these couple months. That I just felt like, okay, I think my body's in a great spot. I'm consistently ovulating. I can tell exactly when I'm ovulating. I have that data now. And so obviously that makes conception a lot easier because you have really strong data to go off of. So that brings us to a little bit of, the last couple weeks then. So what's funny is the beginning of October, I had scheduled a photo shoot because I was like, gosh, it's been a while since I've done professional photos. I need to get some updated pictures. And I think there was almost this like sudden sense of urgency of like, oh my gosh, if I get pregnant, then probably not gonna be able to like take the type of more, traditional phodos. Obviously I'll do pregnancy photos at a certain point, but not like traditional
like
fitness type of photos. And there's always a little bit of that, like, well, you never know what postpartum is going to be like. You never know what the process is going to be. I don't want to rush my body into going back or anything like that. So I suddenly felt this sense of urgency, whether it's right or wrong, of like, I need to get some photos now while I still can. So I booked a photographer. And then I had suddenly this like, oh man, I've been working on fertility. I haven't been working on body composition. I feel like I need to like tighten up a little bit for this photo shoot. Meanwhile, you've been working on your health journey.
Yeah.
And so, as we've shared with listeners before, we typically do like a 72-hour fast like once a year. We did one last spring. We talked about that in a podcast episode. You guys could go back to that and hear about why we do that, the purpose behind that. But you had decided you were going to do another one come early October. And so I told you, okay, as long as it syncs up with my follicular phase so it doesn't mess with my ovulation, I'll do the fast with you. So that said, we were preparing our bodies for this fast. 2 days before we were supposed to start the fast, I suddenly was like, oh my God, I feel really awful. Why do I just feel like my body is really, struggling right now? I'm really detoxing hard. Well, I'm like, you know what? These symptoms remind me a lot of when I had COVID. I'm going to take a COVID test just to see. Somehow I had COVID. This is still mind-boggling to me because, you guys, I don't leave the house.
You really don't.
I work out from home. I work at home. I'm kind of ashamed to say this, but typically I Instacart groceries. We go to church, and that's like the only time I leave the house. That week we did, a few days before, go to the pumpkin patch with my family.
Yeah.
And we hosted my family, and I was kind of thinking like maybe, like the kids maybe got me sick, but nobody else in my family and ended up having COVID. You never ended up getting COVID. It was kind of weird to the point of I really, during that time, I had COVID. I was like, crap, now I can't do this fast. And, now I have this photo shoot next week. Now my body's going to probably be all inflamed because of COVID. And I was kind of had this initial point of like feeling stressed about it. And I suddenly had this realization that I'm like, oh, you know what I think this is? I feel like this is God kind of redirecting me a little bit to say, hey, let's just stay focused on fertility right now. And my thought process was that fasting isn't necessarily going to help with ovulation this month. If I do it during follicular phase, it probably won't hurt it. But I kind of had this thought of just like, well, this will be like the first month of trying. If I, if because of this fast, because of this photo shoot, I don't set my body up for success, we can try again next month. It'll be okay. It kind of felt like it was God redirecting, saying, no, we're focusing on fertility this month. I
never thought about it like that. Yeah.
I never said it to you because I almost didn't want to say that, but I was like, if I get pregnant this month, I'm definitely like, that has to have been the reason why, because it makes zero sense how I got sick and wasn't.
And it really, you were sick for what, 2 days or so, and then you got a little bit better, didn't you? Like it wasn't like, it didn't like bring you down for
I was down for like 2 days and then like another 2 days that I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then because of that, didn't get to fast. So then, the following week, or like a week and a half later, following week, ovulated, successful ovulation. Then that brings us to the following week where I, of course, I wasn't sharing all this with Omar because I didn't necessarily want to get him I
feel like I'm just learning news here the first time.
Yeah, I was like, you're hearing some of this first. So as I'm watching my Mira, I'm watching my Oura ring, I'm like looking at just different symptoms, and I'm like, I don't want to overthink this, but I do want to use this as an opportunity to collect data so that if this month is not successful, I can, of course, make adjustments to set myself up for more success the following month. So I was looking at my temperature, I was looking at my hormones on the Mira, and I'm like, yep, looks like I ovulated. And I honestly wasn't sure if even coming off of COVID, if I would still ovulate, because I was pleasantly surprised about that. Looks like I ovulated. Then following ovulation, it's like, okay, I am feeling like what could be some traditional luteal phase symptoms, but because I've really gotten my hormones in a good spot, the last 2 cycles hadn't really felt any symptoms. So it kind of was like, I feel like this might actually be
a little different symptoms of something else.
Because the reality is PMS is also what it can feel like in those very, very initial stages of pregnancy. So it's like, as I was starting to feel some of the fatigue, I was like, is this just like PMS spiking up this month, or is this something else? But I didn't want to overthink it. So I wasn't sharing it with you necessarily. But then, we were supposed to go to your friend's wedding.
Yeah. Literally this past weekend.
And, work was really busy that
2
week.
weekends ago now.
I was just so exhausted. I told you, I was like, I don't think I can go on this trip. I was like, I cannot miss a day of work. I got way too much to do, and I am so tired. I know, we're guys are going to want to go out late and, have fun. And I just want to sleep. That's all I want to do right now is just work and sleep. And so I stayed back. And I slept a lot too. I would work all day long, eat my dinner, and then go to bed and sleep 10 hours. I knew, I was like, this seems kind of unusual. So I was like, of course, checking, like, okay, when's the earliest I can take a pregnancy test? So, confirm my ovulation date. So I figured that based on that, the earliest I could take an ovulation test was that Sunday. You were coming back that Sunday morning. And I was like, you know what? It's a little bit early. Even if I am pregnant, it still might not pick up on it yet because it is early. So I'm just going to go ahead and like take a pregnancy test, but also like not necessarily do this one with you yet because it is early. And so like even it could be negative of like a false negative. So I was like, I'll just go and do this one as like a first kind of, first try kind of by myself. So literally that morning, I'd eaten breakfast, kind of got myself ready to leave to the airport. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Take the pregnancy test, set it down, come back in 5 minutes, and I pick it up, and I am like, oh my God.
You're like, oh.
I'm like, I'm pregnant. Holy crap. I was very emotional, but I was just almost like this like overwhelm of emotions of like shock and like happiness.
I haven't heard this part yet, you guys, so I'm still learning it with you guys at the first time.
But like, I just was like stunned. And at the same time, I'm like, I gotta go to the airport. So I just like grab it, take it with me. I'm in the car, and then I pick you up, and like you're all sleepy from like a really early morning flight, and you can tell from your side of the story if you want.
No. Well, what's funny is yes, I was at a friend's wedding in Nashville, and the cool thing is he actually shared that they were getting pregnant, but they were also expecting, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, that's so exciting. I'm like, I know we've talked about this, and I was telling you after when I got home, I was like, that was just so cool that like, they're pregnant. I'm like, I'm excited for our journey. Little did I know that you had this pregnancy test that you were going to share with me.
You were in Nashville. You were thinking about that. You had said that to me. Yeah.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah. That was, Saturday night, and I flew out, or Friday, and then I flew out, first thing Sunday, and I was going to share all of that with you. So yeah, I mean, I'm still like half asleep. It was probably like 8:30, 9 in the morning. I get out of the plane, get my luggage. You pick me up at the airport. And, you're always like recording stuff. So I'm like, oh, no big deal. So I get in the car, and the phone is recording on the dashboard. And Vanessa was like, yeah, I'm just recording content. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Didn't think anything of it. And then as you start to kind of drive away, you just like look at me, and then you open up the center console, and you pulled out the test. And for a split second, it took me a little while, and I was like,
well, I just like hand it to him.
Yeah, you just handed it to me, and I was like, cool. I was like, what is this? And then I didn't realize. So it took a second for me. I'm like, oh, this is a pregnancy test. And then I turned it over. I was like, this says pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I started tearing up. But then the crazy thing is you're driving. We have cars in the back, and I'm like trying to hug you. And I was like, okay, bad time to be able to do this.
In my mind, it was like we're going to be both sitting in the car as like I first pick you up. But then you remember that, I don't know if every airport's like this, but at least our airport, they like keep you moving. Yep. There is no waiting at the pickup line. Yep. And so it's like, I'm like pulling forward, but like looking at him. And like, as soon as you're like, are you pregnant? I just start bawling.
I know.
I think I'd been holding tears back all morning. But I was like, I can't pick you up already looking like I've cried.
You're like, are you okay?
I was like, I'm not going to cry. And so once you were like, are you pregnant? I was
like, what does this mean? Yeah, no, but it was so cool. Vanessa, you'll have to share the video because it was so just magical and unexpected. And I was like, there was just, this overflow of emotions.
I feel like you didn't really fully believe it yet until we got home, and you were like, should you take another test? You're like, I think you should take another test.
Well, I was like, tell me more. I was like, how long have you known? I'm like, what do you feel? What are your symptoms? I'm like, let's chat GPT this thing. I'm like,
He's like, could it be a false positive?
Yeah. I was like, are you sure? I'm like, I don't want to start celebrating. And so, you took a second pregnancy test, and it literally was like pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. And then you went to the doctor a couple of days, and they confirmed. I was like, okay, now it's starting to really sink in. But yeah, I mean, I'm just over the moon. I'm so excited. And, I'm just excited for like, it still kind of feels a little bit surreal, but I'm excited just to see the whole journey along. Like I've already like chat GPT like names and like everything. So I'm excited.
Just name it chat.
Chat, last name PT. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm just most excited, honestly, to get to see you be a dad, because like I said, it's like you truly are like meant to be a dad. You are so good with kids. It is crazy. And I remember from when we first started dating, I remember we went to like a little brewery with your friends. And so you'd had like a few beers, you were a little tipsy. And
Oh
there
my
was like
gosh.
this lady with like her little, probably like a 1 or 2 year old, like just like barely walking around. And you were like, making faces at everything. And you're like half drunk, I think, but you're like, oh, like we should make a baby. And I'm like, oh man, this guy has baby fever.
Yeah, this is like our, maybe, I don't know,
We were like 2 months into dating.
couple months into dating.
But it was just like, you've always from the beginning been just like showed all the green flag signs that you'd be such a great dad. And our niece and nephew are just obsessed with you. Our nephew, like you're his favorite person ever. And it's gonna be so fun and exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for both of us. I think, you've just grown into like your faith, and I feel like you're just so more like calm and grounded. I'm like, awesome. I love this. So I'm excited for you to have that version of your life too.
Yeah. So a little bit on like the health side of things too, because that's of course a big part of why I want to bring you guys in on this. Is I want to share like what I'm doing, what I struggle with, all the things throughout every step of the process. And that said too, I'm sure for some people, I know sometimes talking about pregnancy and fertility could be maybe triggering for some people, and if you're in that place, I fully understand and respect if you need to maybe like mute my content for a period of time or things like that. But for those who are either just curious or, wanting to learn because maybe you're in this phase of life as well, or you're hoping to, be in this phase of life at some point, I hope that this can be helpful for you guys. Because I'm going to be learning right along with you. But I, of course, first thing right away, once I found out, like made some adjustments, and guess supplements I'm taking. So, I had been taking various different supplements for whether it's supporting more detox or hormones or gut. So of course, pulled a lot of those. And so now I'm just taking, or continuing to take, because I've been taking for, since I think May, I started taking a prenatal to help set my body up for success by starting to take the essential vitamins and nutrients that I would need upon pregnancy. So I like the Metagenics prenatal. It's called the +1 prenatal by Metagenics. I just always liked Metagenics. I think they're a very quality brand. And they're not one that like spends all their money on influencer marketing. They actually spend their money on quality ingredients and on quality testing and all the things. And then I also added in separately an additional form of choline to really support on that side of things. I changed out my digestive enzyme for one that is pregnancy safe. So I had been taking one that had some things that may not exactly be safe during pregnancy. There's not enough research on it. So instead I'm taking a Cellcore brand enzyme called CT-Zymes. I had previously been taking digestive enzymes because I have that history of gut issues, and being a higher stress individual with owning a business, most business owners can benefit from taking a digestive enzyme, but especially those with a history of gut issues. So I want to make sure I can continue to take one through pregnancy, but especially, this one is a little bit easier to, if I were to end up with, some nausea, some indigestion, very common symptoms in pregnancy, this one will be a little bit easier on the tummy as well. And then I also changed my magnesium. I was taking a magnesium glycinate and citrate blend, but citrate can be a little bit harder on the gut during pregnancy, so I switched to just a full magnesium glycinate powder. I take the Seeking Health brand. I will say it's not the best tasting in my opinion, but I do feel really good with it. So I'm not one of those people that's like, I need everything to taste good, otherwise I can't take it. Of course, maybe ask me again when like the nausea starts hitting. And then, some other things are like, I have traditionally taken some Progon B progesterone support. I will likely continue to take, I am going to do a little blood work next week, check my progesterone levels and see where things are at, but I'll probably, to support in the first trimester, I will probably continue to take a little bit of Progon B. I just need to adjust the exact dosage of that depending on where my blood work is at, and then transition off that after week 12 or so. And then the other thing I have kind of just in my back pocket as a plan is if I do have pretty bad nausea, I would probably look for an IV drip. So in your first trimester, IV drips can be really fantastic. Doing just some fluids and some B6 can really, really help with the nausea as well. So that's my plan there. And then continue with electrolytes. I still like the Element electrolyte. We've talked about that before. I know some people can hate on it sometimes, and I know there's going to be some differing opinions about electrolytes. I find that my body responds really well to Element. I do well with the higher sodium ratio. It helps pull water into the cell, helps me actually be less puffy, and I feel good with it. So I will continue to take probably one a day, and then if I feel some days a little bit more fatigued, like I need it, I might add a second packet as well. But yeah, I mean, we're still early, not feeling a ton of symptoms yet, other than like some sleep has been a little bit funky, a little bit of fatigue here and there, probably a little more emotional. I've cried a lot lately, but it's also been primarily crying every time I just tell somebody that I'm pregnant. I'm like, I just like, oh, this will be just like a normal conversation of saying I'm pregnant, and suddenly I'm like, oh. So happy tears, great things. I haven't really adjusted my nutrition at all. You don't really need to in your first trimester. So I've been eating at maintenance. So I'm staying kind of right at maintenance. And then of course, listening to my body, where if I feel a little bit extra hungry some days, I'll add an extra 100, 200 calories. Because obviously maintenance is not just one exact number. It can ebb and flow day by day anyway. And any other changes, nutrition wise, I'm still following my MRT protocol. So if you want to know what that is, we just did a podcast episode about that. So I'm still following that. And of course, I'm sure cravings will start to spike up at certain points. So I'm sure I'll talk about that as we go. But still, keeping a lot of foods out and just continuing to follow that, because I do think that that's been a significant part of why my hormones have been such a great spot, is really just such a drastic reduction in inflammation from following that, along with the other things I've done as well. I probably, I had been kind of in a cycle of eating like 4 meals a day, so a little bit larger meals. Right now I've been working on dropping more to like 6 meals per day, smaller, more frequent meals, because even though I haven't started experiencing any nausea or any digestive issues, haven't thrown up or anything yet, I'm sure that will come at some point, and it's a lot easier in your body to have smaller, more frequent meals, and also better for blood sugar, which be really important and helpful to keep blood sugar regulated, to help support my body, support my health as much as possible. Movement's been the same, still strength training about 3 times a week, still walking about 10K steps a day, really just focusing on keeping things relaxed, stress low. Really have enjoyed going for just like trying to wrap up my day by like 5:30 if I can, kind of start work a little bit earlier, and then try and eat dinner a little bit earlier. So like if I eat dinner at 6, then I can go for a walk with the dog at 6:30 and just take a nice long, slow walk. And I found that that's been like feeling really, really good for my body too.
Yeah. I'm excited to see just on what you shared, how on top of your nutrition you are. I'm excited to see how like your symptoms are. And I don't know what that will entail. Like you might feel amazing, or you might have some challenging times, but I feel like a lot of people, they just kind of wing it. And I'm like, for you, again, you're putting so much time and effort into this. So I'm curious to see how that's going to impact your journey too.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people who, maybe have been pregnant and have had various experiences will probably like listen to me talking now and be like, girl, just you wait. Yeah. Just you wait. It's not that easy. But I want to try the best I can to continue to eat the way I always have, really focused on nutrient-dense foods, really focused on whole foods, making sure I'm eating enough, making sure my macros are balanced, making sure my blood sugar is being supported by the meals I'm eating, eating lots of fiber, lots of fruits and vegetables. Like I really want to continue with these habits as much as I possibly can, knowing that obviously there's a lot of factors at play in how your body feels in a pregnancy, how, a healthy pregnancy. There's lots more that contribute to that. I'm not saying by any means that your nutrition is the only deciding factor for that, but I do believe that it has an influence in that. And if it's something I can control, I want to try and manage it as best as I can, while also, of course, knowing that, and it's the holidays. Of course, I also want to be able to lean and just balance and be human too in the process. But, I think I'd shared with you I once a long time ago, this was like long before I even ever started coaching, I'd heard on a podcast from this woman. I don't even remember who she is or like what her name is, but this just stuck with me. And I remember kind of thinking like, that's an interesting way to think about it. And I think I'll try that route and see how that goes. But she had said that, and she was a mom of like maybe 3 or 4. And she was like, in my pregnancies always focused on my nutrition hardcore. She's like, way more than I ever focused on nutrition outside of pregnancy. She said, because the way I see it is this is the only time I will ever actually have control over what my child consumes. Because once they're out of me, they are their own human being, and I can try my best to get them to eat healthy and eat well, but I will no longer be in control of what they eat and what they don't eat at the end of the day, especially as they go older. She said, so even if it's hard for that 9-month period of time, I want to support them as best as possible and set them up for success by eating, as healthy as I possibly can. And I thought, that's an interesting take. So why not try that route, see how that goes. And of course, also accept that I'm human and give myself grace in the process, that I probably will at times not feel good. I probably will have strong cravings. I will probably not be perfect, but I'm just going to do the best I can with that. And let's see, I've been craving, I think you pointed out, I'm like, I feel like I'm eating more like Mexican-y flavors. Will make sense because
and I was like, well, I am Mexican. So I'm like, he or she just knows what they like.
So yeah. What are you most excited about?
Yeah, I would say I'm most excited, and I kind of shared this already, but I'm just most excited to see you become a mom and just see how you change and like the different things that, just the person that you become. So just your journey.
I love it. What are you most nervous about?
I would probably say right now, nothing, because there's not a lot for me to do, but I think once the baby gets here, it's like just the late nights and the sleep. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but we'll take it one step at a time. How about you?
I feel like, I haven't thought too far into like postpartum and what that will feel like yet. And I also feel very much just like, oh, we'll figure that out when it comes. And also very just like trusting in God and whatever will happen. But like more immediate future, I am a little nervous about sharing this so early publicly.
Oh yeah.
For multiple reasons of like, obviously there is risk in that. And we are, acknowledging that like there, could be risk of loss and needing to update on those types of things. But like I said, I want people to be involved in that process. I think it's actually more so of like, the thing I'm always forever working through when you put your life online and very public is like always the fear of judgment of, whether it's judgment on how I go about pregnancy or judgment on me sharing the news early or, any kind of judgment. There's always nervousness about that when it's something that I admittedly am like, this is a new thing for me and I'm learning it as I go, and I'll probably make mistakes and I'll probably, maybe say or do things that then I look back and I'm like, oh, like that could have been different. And as always, people like to point those things out. So that's probably, I'd say, what I'm most nervous of. And that's something I'm always forever working on, is just not allowing the fear of man or worry about what other people think ever influence me. Yeah.
Well, again, we'll take it one step at a time.
But thank you guys so much for listening in, because I know obviously this was a very personal episode. And so I appreciate you just being interested in our life and what we have going on. And I hope that this can be helpful for you all. And if anybody has any questions or anything they want to specifically hear about, anything they want to know about, reach out to me. Shoot me a message on Instagram at Vanessa G Fitness. I love getting to connect with you guys, try to answer as many messages as I possibly can. And I hopefully will continue to share about this. And so if there's anything specifically you want me to share about, just let me know. But thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.